This episode of Distraction is sponsored by Landmark College, offering comprehensive support for students with learning disabilities, ADHD, and ASD. Learn more at lcdistraction.org. Landmark College, we teach differently. Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell for Distraction. Today we have a special episode based on your questions and answers. I love to do these. We get lots of questions from listeners, and we try to answer as many as we can in shows like this one. So we hope as you listen today, you'll be prompted to call us, email us with questions of your own that we can use in a future episode. We thrive on these. It's part of our growing community of distraction. I can't tell you how much I get a kick out of this. I love it because it's sort of living proof of our growing community of distraction. And boy, oh boy, what we need is community. So today, first up is a question we received on our voicemail.
Hi, my name is Tracy, and I am wondering your opinion on the new genetic testing that they're doing to match people with medications. I have a couple of friends and colleagues who have done this for their kids and actually for themselves too, and I was just wondering if you think it's a helpful way to find the right medication, especially for recently diagnosed adults.
Thank you so much for your call, Tracy, and we welcome calls like yours. The genetic testing, most experts agree, it's just not there yet. I've talked to a lot of people in the field, and to a person, they agree it's not there. So it's very appealing, and who wouldn't want a genetic test to tell you what medication to take? And as a result, it's been very successful. A lot of people have invested a lot of money in it, but honestly, it's not worth the investment. And so we're stuck with trial and error. I mean, there's some guidelines as to what medication to take, of course, based on your diagnosis and the experience that you've had with medications in general, but genetic testing is simply not worth the money that it costs. All right, Andrew asked a question about ADHD and abnormal stress. He wrote, I am a 62-year-old man diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 57. It's never too late to get diagnosed, by the way. Much of my career as a pharmacist, as well as interpersonal relationships, have been very challenged by a hyper response to stress. Is this based on ADHD? If so, what are your recommendations? Well, it's hard to say what it's based on. It's based on who you are, and ADHD is part of who you are. So it's hard to parse out, exactly what is doing what. I think people say, well, if I sneeze a lot, is that due to ADHD? Well, it really doesn't matter. It's who you are is who you are. And whether it's being caused by pepper or ADHD, it sort of doesn't matter. And the same thing here, if you have a hyper response to stress, you'd like to try to understand what's causing that. If there's some underlying medical condition, is it hyperthyroidism? Is it some adrenal malfunction? So you really ought to see your primary care doctor and maybe be referred to an endocrinologist for a workup. But once the medical workup is complete, then you just get into standard stress management as well as taking care of your ADHD. In general, if your ADHD is properly taken care of, that should help reduce stress. But those of us with ADHD, we tend to be highly reactive. We tend to be highly imaginative. We tend to be prone toward worry. And all of those factors can exacerbate stress. So yes, having ADD can contribute to and exacerbate stress. But you're still left with the issue of you need to get on a program for dealing with stress. And again, I'm saying, the knowing the underlying cause of the stress will help, but assigning it to ADD or to some other issue, sometimes it's impossible to separate one from the other. But do make sure that you check it out medically. Check out thyroid, adrenal, blood pressure, cardiovascular status, other sort of standard indices of stress. And then get on a stress reduction program that will always include exercise, will always include meditation, will always include attention to sleep, and then make sure your ADHD is fully and properly treated. Okay, let's go on to another question from our voicemail.
Hi. So this is a message to express thanks and admiration for your work, Dr. Hallowell. I have just loved your audiobook. I just listened to it because I come from a crazy family and was powerfully moved by your story. It resonated with me very much regarding my own family. I guess my question is how to deal with the shame from coming from a family like that. My father was abusive, and the part of the story I think that I was most enamored with was how you somehow moved past the victim mentality to see love and forgiveness in your own family. How did that happen? I feel a lot of pain and a lot of shame, and was just curious about that concept.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your kind words about my memoir, Because I Come from a Crazy Family. I wrote the book hoping that people like you would read it, and, the whole point is to get past shame and get to a place of really celebration, which is how I feel about it. And the way I did it was I had cousins who were like siblings to me, 2 double first cousins, and we banded together, and we actually, kind of laughed at what was going on. We sort of took it upon ourselves to make Christmases special, and we would go out and get into mischief together. We kind of created our own sort of fortress, if you will, our own kind of special world, and the three of us, we looked out for each other, had each other's back, emotional back, and I think forgiveness honestly begins as a decision. It's a process after that. But you can decide, you can say, I don't want to turn my pain into a lifetime of resentment and anger. It is a process, but the decision to head in that direction, I think, is a decision. And Confucius said, if you go down the road to revenge, first dig 2 graves. And so, I just think if you open your heart as much as you can and share what your own life with other people, you'll find the shame sort of evaporates. And the people who would shame you, they're the ones who should be ashamed. And the ones who are bold enough to come out and speak their own truth, those are the people who should feel proud, because they're giving a gift to all of us. That's what I tried to do in my memoir. That's what you're doing by calling the show and, opening up yourself. That's what we need to do for each other. We need to speak the truth to each other. And the more we do that, the more everyone will feel the great joy that comes from being genuine. Thank you so much for being brave enough to call and ask those questions. It means a lot to me, and I'm sure to everyone listening. Remember, you can call and leave your question on our voicemail, which I would love for you to do, by dialing 844-55-CONNECT. That's 844-55-CONNECT. All right. The next question is from Kim, who sent us an email. Do you have any advice on how to deal with life while feeling that nothing you do is ever good enough? How can I allow myself to feel accomplished and happy at the end of the day and not constantly feel like I could have done more? Well, first of all, thank you for sending in that question. And I can tell you, Kim, you speak for millions and millions and millions of people. And the people who ask that question, oddly enough, are the people who do the most. The people who achieve at the highest level often end the day feeling like they could have done more. The fact is, none of us does as much as we can do. There's not a person on the face of this earth who at the end of the day has done as much as he or she could possibly do. No one does. When you say do your best, that's a terrible thing to tell someone to do, because no one does their best. People who take that too seriously get into all kinds of trouble, and that's probably what you're doing. You're taking it too seriously. You're setting the bar too high. And then when you don't achieve it because it's impossible to achieve, then you end your day by punishing yourself, which is a terrible thing to do. The people who should ask themselves that question, how could I do better? They know they never do. So the fact that you're thinking about it is almost a guarantee that you're doing well. And your issue is to work on, cutting yourself some slack. And it's hard to do that on your own. So if I were you, I'd talk to somebody about it. Friend, spouse, relative. You could have a therapist, but you don't have to go into therapy for this, although it's a pretty common issue people seek therapy for. But you don't want to waste an awful lot of your life punishing yourself. It really is wasted time, and it's not good for you. You produce stress hormones. It's not good for your body. It's not good for your mind. It's depressing. No good comes out of it. So, you could say to yourself, well, if I want to do something well, I should treat myself well. There's nobody who couldn't do better. Then that's not an excuse for being mediocre. The people who achieve at the highest levels Shakespeare could have done better. Everybody could have done better. So try to team up with someone else, whoever you live with or live near, work with or work near. Try to get that person to help you help yourself by going a little bit easier on yourself. And thanks so much for emailing us. Okay, here's one more from our voicemail.
Hi, Dr. Hallowell. My name's Cooper Willingham. I'm from Massachusetts, and I've had ADD. So I've known about it since I was in 6th grade. I listen to your podcast a lot. It's really great for me and helpful. I'm just wondering if you've done any episodes concerning self-medicating and the toll of medication on people with ADD. I, for one, have been medicated since my freshman year of high school. I'm 19 years old, currently taking a gap year, trying to figure out what's next. But I found I was initially put on Adderall, and it was very helpful at first, but it became a routine and a dependency that was kind of hard to break from. I felt like I couldn't focus without it. I couldn't be motivated to do anything, even the things that I once liked doing and could stay focused with. And so as that developed and as I became more aware of that, I think I started smoking more weed to fall asleep easier, and eventually I got off of Adderall and I was put on extended release for the remainder of my sophomore and junior year. It wasn't until my senior year where I was put on, I took a break from medications. I didn't see a real need for them. I'm now taking Vyvanse, which has been very helpful with my new job and just staying focused with the task at hand, and it's been more subtle and I feel more like myself. However, I still find myself getting into routines of primarily smoking weed to curb the effect of the rebounds. I just wanted to know if you've got any messages like this before. I find it to be a pretty prominent issue with most of the people I know that are medicated. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate your podcast and what you're doing. Keep doing it.
Thank you so much for your call, Cooper. And what I would do is work with your doctor to try to find a better regimen so you don't have that need to smoke pot to deal with the coming off the Adderall or the Vyvanse. In my experience, it's not a good idea for people with ADD to be smoking pot. The problem is it begins to take over more and more of your life. And it is a gateway drug, like it or not. It really is. You can lead on to using Xanax, which can lead on to opiates and the amotivational syndrome that can go with it. And if you could work with your doctor to find a regimen so you didn't feel the need to use pot to deal with the side effects that the stimulants are creating. And that should be doable. So I would revise your prescription medication regimen altogether. But at least know that it's advice that's rooted in my 35 years of working with people with ADHD, and it's not rooted in any kind of anything else. It's just I'm trying to give you advice that I think will help you lead the best sort of life for yourself. Okay, last for today is a question we received from Vineet, looking for a little advice about how to get along with his mother. I think my single mom has some narcissism micromanaging complexes, and it's at violent odds with my ADD impulses. She frequently demands high structure from me and feels personally insulted when I've disrespected her by not following through what I said I would do. We've had 22 years of this constant escalation where the simplest things can quickly become earth-shattering arguments. She also insists that through Islam, her authority as a mother comes directly from Allah. I live with her currently, and she doesn't want to do any therapy, especially not for herself. She historically insists that she's an excellent, rational parent. I've never seen her surrender an argument or forgive and move on, and even at the cost of her own friendships. What can I do as her ADD son to help our relationship? I love her a lot, but there's almost always so much tension between us. It negatively impacts both of our lives. Well, Vineet, the way you describe it, and I guess there's just the two of you in the house, makes it sound almost impossible. You're 22 years old. I would do everything I possibly could to move out. And if your description of the situation is accurate, it sounds untenable. I don't know how you can live there. If you have absolutely no other choice, I'd certainly try to keep my distance. And when I do interact with her, I'd say as politely as possible, Mom, I think we ought to see a therapist to help us get along better. Now, if she is, as you say, as narcissistic and invoking Allah and Islam to back her up, maybe a fruitless request. But I don't know how you're going to make any progress if she simply won't budge. To me, the obvious solution is for you to get a job and move out. I don't think this really has anything to do with ADD at all. And I think it has everything to do with your living with a pretty stubborn mother who is controlling you way more than your age warrants. And it's time for you to find another place to live. Well, that brings us to the end of another show based on your questions. Please, please, please send us your questions, comments. We live off of them. We need them. We're building a growing community here at Distraction, and as I said, it's what we really are in this business to do. So please be in touch with us. Thank the folks who wrote to us and phoned into us. And remember, if you have a question for me or a show idea for us, email it to us at connect@distractionpodcast.com. That's connect@distractionpodcast.com. Or better yet, call us and leave a voicemail. Call 844-55-CONNECT. That's 844-55-CONNECT. And leave us a message, which we will play on the air. Distraction is produced by Collisions, the podcast division of CRN International. Collisions, podcasts for curious people. Our recording engineer is the multi-talented Pat Keogh. Our producer is the incredibly intelligent Sarah Girton. And our editor is the wonderful Chris Latham.